Good morning, gentlemen. Tzidkas Hatzadik, Os Ayin Gimel. Mr. Umlis took me for a loop because he said I skipped one, right? But I didn't. I thought about it. I didn't really skip it. What happened was I spoke about that on Shabbos HaGadol. So that's why I didn't go back to it. Ayin Gimel, Kisha Adam Misakein Mashachata, as a person goes to fix an avera that they did. What do we call that in Hebrew? Tshuva. Before we go further, let me start with my question. Why doesn't he just say tshuva? Person does tshuva like the Chumash and the Tanakh and the Gemara and the Rambam say. Kishadam misakin mashachata az Hashem yisparach mazmin loy oisei perek v'oisei makim. At that point that a person kishadam misakin mashachata, when we do tshuva, then Hashem yisparach brings to them a special gift. Mazmin loy, what's the gift? Oso perek v'oso makim. Kidei shetiyat shuvas hamishkal, so that you should have shuvas hamishkal. So shuvas hamishkal probably means the ultimate shuva. After thinking about the word a long time, balanced shuva. So obviously, just before I go further, this is based on what we all know. The Gemara in Yuma says that when you do tshuva, there's a difference between tshuva gemura, and ultimately being a Baal tshuva. So Baal tshuva, which is a term we throw around a lot these days, is the highest level, because a Baal tshuva refers to somebody who has a bailos on the tshuva. In other words, you're the master of tshuva. That's what a Baal tshuva is. Baal tshuva gemura means you really did take care of that chet. And tshuva means I did tshuva. So there's really, as the Rambam sets out in Hilchos Tshuva, there's really, if you look at it carefully, there's three levels. Tshuva gemura. Example of tshuva, which is not tshuva gemura, a person does tshuva on their deathbed. Tshuva on your deathbed, so you don't really have the chance to go back and do the averas that you were going to do. So, vasvar tshuva. It's not such a clear tshuva, but the Gemara says that it helps him and it's good, and do tshuva before you die. And the Gemara even recommends that you should always be careful you should do tshuva every day because you never know when you're going to die. The Gemara says you should always do tshuva. So that's regular tshuva, so to speak, regular tshuva where you're not, you don't even have an opportunity to do the chet again. The opportunity is gone. But I did tshuva. I feel bad for what I did. If I was able to, I would never do it again. A tshuva gemura is when the issue comes before him again, or he does complete, or the opportunity comes before him again, but he's not going to do it because he has complete charot on what he did. He said vidui, and he has kabbalah laws, and he did complete tshuva gemura. Let me read you the Rambam how he describes this. The Rambam's in Hilchos Tshuva, Perek Beis, and well-learned Rambam. The Rambam says, Ezuhi tshuva gemura. What is tshuva gemura? Zeh shebal yadai davar she'aver by. It's talking about a person who has the same opportunity as they had before. A similar cheeseburger appears before me, and this is my weakness. Pick your sin, whatever you're not into. But about tshuva gemura is eshabali yadei davar she'aver by ve'efshir biyadei la'asayse. And really, if I wanted to, I could do this chet. There's really nothing stopping me from doing this chet. Nobody's looking. Upirish, but this time I don't do it. V'loy asab mipnei ha'tshuva. That's called tshuva gemura. Loy miyira, not because I'm afraid of people finding out. Loy mikishlan koyach, not because now I'm 90, then I was 20. You know, that's not why. And then he gives an example of tshuva gemura. Ketzad, what would be the case? Let's say somebody has a sinful relationship with a woman. Okay, so she's my Yetzirah, she's my Avera. This woman, v'nisyachet v'lachar zman, so you did the Avera, you did tshuva. V'lachar zman, like tshuva, that's terrible. I shouldn't have done that, I did tshuva. Never going to do that again. V'lachar zman nisyachet ima. And then all of a sudden you find yourself with her again. V'omed ba'avasai. And it's not that she's become, sometimes like when somebody was garam a sin, so she'll become like disgusting to me, repulsive. No, I like her just as much as I did. Sometimes, like, it's okay, good, I was young, now I don't have that kind of koach any longer, senior citizen. So, but same thing, but koach gufo. Ubimedina she'avar, and it's even in the same place. Like there you are back in the French Riviera. You're there, and with the same woman and the same ava and the same koach. But the difference is upirish v'layavar zehu bal tshuva gemura. That's called the bal tshuva gemura. And the Rambam goes on and he brings psukim. It's a gemara. I just was looking this morning. This is a pirush of Rav Sternbach on the Rambam. So I just opened this Rambam. I was looking for a lightweight Rambam, but he's not lightweight. But he said, Divrei Rambam tzarich bir. Tameni sham mafarshim loy nisar b'zay. He said, I have a big kasha on this Rambam. Shemakara Rambam, which we're going to learn in a minute, is biyuma peivav amud beis. The Rambam is taking all this. This example is taking it from the Gemara Yuma Peivav and Beis, and over there the Gemara says, "Hey chidame bal tshuva." So the Rav Sternbach's question is, which is a excellent question if you're mismoting in it, that the Rambam says this is a case of tshuva gemura, but the Gemara talks about a higher madrega than tshuva gemura, a master of tshuva, a bal tshuva. So why is the Rambam, asked Rav Sternbach, why is the Rambam taking a case of Bal Tshuva Gemura and he's downgrading it about Tshuva? Was he taking a case of Bal Tshuva, a master? This guy's a master, and he's downgrading it to Tshuva. In order to be a Bal Tshuva, you have to have a lot of practice, which means I guess you have to have done a lot of Averas. But a Bal Tshuva is a master. So he asks, why is the Rambam? He
wouldn't have come up against it if it was about it.
It wouldn't have happened to.
It wouldn't happen to him again.
I don't know if that's true, but all right, Medubar Hasam Mahu Bal Tshuva. I know, just to use his words here. What is a Bal Tshuva? Shehu Bailim al Tshuva. Today we talk a lot about Bal Tshuvas. It has nothing to do with this, just the vernacular. I hope that those of us that are Bali Tshuva actually at some point do Tshuva. You have to actually do Tshuva. You have to actually go through the Chatoim and actually do Tshuva. You can't just, we're not talking about a lifestyle change. That also, that's part of it, but we're talking about it. So I don't know that what we talked about, whoever decided that this is the Baal Tshuva movement and the Baal Tshuva revolution, but I'm just saying that's not the Rambam's Tshuva. The Rambam's Tshuva is, I did this chet, and you know, like if you were Mechalel Shabbos like for years and years and years, I want to give only chizuk. I'm just saying if you're Mechalel Shabbos for years and years and years, you got a lot of tshuva to do. I mean, if their base mikdash was Chaim, you'd have to bring like a lot of korbanos every time you're Mechalel Shabbos. I think, right?
Yeah, you won because you only knew the Hikra Shabbos later.
How do you know? You have a raya?
Personal experience.
I didn't even know it was on Saturday.
I'm not putting a guilt trip on anybody. Let's go around the table here.
I'd like to sell kebabs.
Shulchan Aruch says in Shulchan Shabbos that if you did a chet b'shoigeg many times, you have to bring carbon for every time. Shoigeg. So it's not so pashut. So you're saying, okay, this is not even a shogeg, this is a tinik shenishma. It's not our subject. But the point is that everybody should do tshuva, whether you were born that way or not born that way. Everybody should be a Baal tshuva. So a Baal tshuva is, let me put it in my language, and every year, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur time, we learn about this, that there's a difference between like doing tshuva on the Aveira, so to speak, and being a Baal tshuva, master tshuva in the Gavra. I've become a different type of person. The Rambam says this later. I'm not even the same person that did a chet. But that's his question. And then the Rambam gives this example from the Gemara in Yuma. Watch the nuance here of Reb Tzadok. Everybody else asks on the Rambam, by the way, like what you're saying. Like, how does this even happen? If you became a Baal Tshuva, what are you doing in the French Riviera? And also you have to do yichud. Yichud's an isser. How what tzaddik is doing yichud. So you'd have to say the yeshiva shemafarshim on the Rambam say doesn't mean that you did yichud. It just means that even if you would what? Look at Reb Tzadok. Here's a gift. Hashem Yisbarach mazmin loy oisay perek v'oisay makon. Hashem organizes that you are in that same place with the same woman and the same strength. Kidei shi'ei tshuvas hamishkal. Look at the nuance here. This is a hazmana. You are invited. Pella. Sharei vada yesh dvarim she'aser. So he explains. Vada yesh dvarim she'aser adam lahavi asma l'deikach. Certainly you're not allowed to do yichud. Or whatever even go into a treif restaurant is not a good idea. Nevertheless, Hashem puts you in a situation of yichud. Okay. It doesn't have to be women, and it doesn't have to be elevators, and it doesn't whatever it might be. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will put you in a forbidden situation, not just so we're not talking about only a test. We're talking about somehow or another I will be in this situation. That's a hazmanah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Here you go. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not create the situation for you. It's because Hashem knows, Yodea Talumos knows, that you will not fall into this again. And therefore, Kasher Hashem Yisbarach Mazmin Lo, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu does bring the situation to him, Hu Simin, Shekvar Niskan B'Niskablu Tshuva. So it's a raya that his tshuva was miskabel. This is a puzzle, and I want to take it apart for you in 1 or 2 minutes. The Rambam here, the Rambam and Reb Tzadok are saying two different things about two different subjects, all based in one Gemara, and this would answer Rav Sternbach's question also. The Gemara says in Yuma Pevav, down here, Hechidami Baal Tshuva, Amar Rav Yehuda, Kigoin Shabas Liyadai Dvar Avera, Pam Rishayno Ushnia Benitzel Himenu. That's the lashon of the Gemara. Amar Rav Yehuda. What is a Baal Tshuva? A Baal Tshuva is somebody Shabas Liyadai Dvar Avera Pam Rishayna Ushnia V'Nitzel Himenu. The Avera appeared in my life again and again, and I was able to hold back from that. Then you're a Baal Tshuva. That's what the Gemara says. That was Rav Yehuda. Machvi Rav Yehuda. Ba'oisai Isha, Ba'oisai Perek, Ba'oisai Makon. Same Rav Yehuda. Machvi Rav Yehuda. What does Machvi mean? Chaim? Clarified? pointed. Rabbi Yaakov Haber, klape mal. Somebody else, common word in the Gemara, right? Machvi. There's a Machvi Rabbi Yehuda. So I think it means that he demonstrated or he gave an example in this case. Machvi Rabbi Yehuda, or the kilo pointing. Here's a case. Ba'osa isha, ba'osa parak, ba'osa makom. I don't think he pointed to a certain woman. She's the one. But because already they were in the base medrash. But what he was saying, so the same Rabbi Yehuda says that Shabali Yadei Dvar Aver Pam Rishona Shniya V'Nitzel Imeno Machvi Rabbi Yehuda Ba'isa Isha Ba'isa Parak Ba'isa Makom. That's the basis of the Rambam here. Again, the question was, he was talking about, Rabbi Yehuda was talking about Hechadami Bal Tshuva, and the Rambam downgrades them to Tshuva Gemara. Reb Tzadok here is not talking about Tshuva at all. La'aniyas daiti. He's not. I don't think that's the case. Kishahadam misakein mashachata. Talk about a new idea of tikkun hachet. Tshuva is a process that you do, and everybody should do. If an aveira was done, chas v'shalom, you do tshuva. There's another thing left in our bucket list here of things you do when you do an aveira, and that's a tikkun of the chet. Now, let me explain to you what a tikkun means in Hasidic language and even in the language of Chazal. A tikkun, like an obvious example of a tikkun would be ve'yeshivas hagzela. So not only, let's say, not only have I stolen something and I did tshuva and I feel so bad about it, but you actually give it back, right? So you're misakein, actually give back the money. By tikkun, if it's geneva, you give kefil, etc. By a ben adam l'makom avera machal Shabbos, or somebody eats treif or is with a woman, a forbidden woman. So what is the tikkun exactly? So what would the tikkun be? So the answer is that we're talking about a different type of tikkun. We're talking about the ultimate tikkun of my own neshama, my own nefesh. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about closing the gap or replacing the loss. That's not the tikkun. The tikkun, I believe, in this case, refers to a growth that a person goes through, even a growth spurt. And it's not tshuva. Tshuva is the thing that you do along the way. Maybe it's a bal tshuva, but most important for our subject is whether it is a bal tshuva or not a bal tshuva. There's a tikkun for the chet, meaning a tikkun means, I'm going to say, if we weren't learning Tzidkas Hatzadik, I wouldn't have the sort of guts to say this, but that you've actually grown from it. You've actually grown from doing this aveira. The aveira turns into something positive, if you will. Doesn't mean that you should go do an aveira to do something positive, but it does mean, like the Gemara says, that sometimes when you do tshuva, so zdonos nasa kischuyos, it actually becomes a positive aspect of my life.
But it doesn't mean you wouldn't do it again, but he recognizes what he's done was wrong and how to do that.
Right. So aveira happens. Tshuva, of course, you have to do tshuva, but and it's interesting. The kasha is on the Rambam. Like, why does the Rambam sort of borrow this? I mean, the Gemara says ezuhi bal tshuva. Why is the Rambam carried over to tshuva Gemara and not a bal tshuva? But for our purposes, I'm not here to say Torah in the Rambam, but for our purposes, we're talking about a different aspect. And if you look carefully at the Reb Tzadok, he says, Ein Hashem Yisparach Mazmin Loizeh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not create this situation again, Ela Kishiyodeya Shelo Yikashel Oid, unless he knows that I'm going to withstand the temptation. V'lakach, here's the key words, Kasher Hashem Yisparach Mazmin Loi, when this does happen to you, your Ba'osa Makam, Ba'osa Parak, Ba'osa Isha, all that, Hu simen shekvar niskan v'niskablo tshuva. It means he already did tshuva. It's very important words, and I believe I'm right, and I believe probably most people read this too fast. That kvar niskablo tshuva. So we're talking about two Rav Yehudas, if you will. The same Rav Yehuda, but saying two things. One thing is Ezu Baal Tshuva. And he explains, the Aver comes to you again and again, and you resisted temptation. That's about Tshuva, Gemara. That's about Tshuva. But then Machvi la Rav Yehuda, why does he even say his name again? Machvi la Rav Yehuda, but then there's a different thing. And I believe Rabbi Tzadok is learning that different thing is Tikkun HaChet, which is different than the Tshuva v'Chet. And if, again, Hashem puts this in your situation, and we're not talking about, as he says, you're not allowed to put yourself in this kind of situation. That's us. It's like, let's do yichud, to do a tikkun. The word tikkun, think tikkun klali, think all the svarim talking about a tikkun. It's talking about how somehow or another you're going to use this avera. So here's as some type of a growth, more than a catalyst, but some kind of a. If we go back for a second to Ayin, a long time ago, even though it was only 2 pages ago, Ba'oso davar Oisayin, Rabbi Tzadok said, Ba'oso davar shabo hachisaron shel adam, that where you will find the chisaron, Ba'osei davar yodeho atzmahu malaseh. The chasarn of a person in general is exactly, not just, as I always thought, not just, that's your area for growth. No, the chasarn will be that which makes you grow. You say, okay, well, I have a problem with anger, so we'll say, okay, well, that's your avodah in this world. You got to take care of your anger. No. Somehow or another, the anger itself will bring him to a place. Kinyan Shamruzal, and he brings rayas to this. Key proof is Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, because when Rabbi Yochanan met Reish Lakish was the head of the bandits. And Rosh Ludoi, so Rashi says there that he was a good bandit. He was like meaning he was a very skilled bandit, and who knows what he did. But he was an expert in knives and in weapons and all type of things. The Gemara talks about him and says that he was an expert in knives. So means he used knives. So he was he wasn't shechting sheep. He was a bandit. But his main, the Gemara points out in one place that like one of the main things he was concerned about was saving kids. In that crime situation, he was busy with protecting children. Rashi says in Chazal. So he had but when he met Rabbi Yochanan, and he started to they met at the Jordan River, and Rabbi Yochanan bounced down from those mountains there. I'm sorry, Reish Lakish, and Rabbi Yochanan was just bathing. So Rabbi Yochanan looked at him. Reish Lakish started to make fun of Reish Yochanan. Like what? And Rabbi Yochanan told him, Chel chaloi raisa. Like the meaning the very, not Chel chaloi raisa, why don't you become a Baal Tshuva? That's not what he said to him. This wasn't, do you want to put on tefillin? That's not what was going on. Chel chaloi raisa, he pointed out to him that the very koach that he has to do all this criminal activity, that very koach is going to be, can be the thing that can make you a gadol hador. And that one sentence of Rabbi Yochanan not only changed Reish Lakish's life, but changed the whole Talmud Bavli. It was one, so Chelcha Loi Raisa. I always think to myself that the Gemara speaks about, in Eruvin, Yud Gimel, the Gemara speaks about Rabbi מאיר. So Rebbe said, Reisius Rabbi Meir me'achorav. I saw the back of Rabbi Meir. like he just, from the distance, he saw Rabbi Meir, and that gave him a huge amount of, so it's interesting, he saw the back. What does that even mean? Like I saw the back of Rabbi Meir, something like the Maharal says something like Hashem, like Moshe Rabbeinu saw the back of Hashem Tefillin Kesher Tefillin Shel Rosh. That's Rabbi Meir. I mean, there's a person, but that's what he said. But Rabbi Meir used to give shiurim on, the Gemara says, on how to be Matayr Asheretz. So the Gemara says he would bring in a sheretz to class, and now a sheretz is the ultimate, tumah and treif and sheretz. So it's horrible. Like you're holding up this, sheretz here, whatever is a sheretz. And he was matayr the sheretz. So this was an exercise of utility. It was almost the sheretz is treif. Whatever a mayor is going to say, a sheretz is a sheretz. You can't eat the sheretz. But what was he doing? He was showing that the sheretz itself has a. This was the omek of it, that even the sheretz, which is completely abhorrent, and you push it away lagamri, has in it an aspect. It's still a bria of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it has in it an aspect of Reish Lakish. It has an aspect. The Gemara says that Rabbi Meir. There was a Talmud Vasik. I'm quoting by heart, but I think I'm quoting correctly. Talmud Vasik Haya B'Yavne. There was an old Talmud who learned in Yavne. So when was that? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. We're talking about like 100 years earlier. And he was an old Talmud. So he used the darshan in Yavne. Somebody remembered, like the Alter Haim, Yavne, that Rabbi Yochanan said correctly, Tein li Yavne v'chachameha. There was a Sanhedrin Yavne, but there was a Talmud Vasik, an old guy in Yavne. We don't even know his name. The Talmud Vasik Haya B'Yavne, that he was Matayr Asheretz B'Kufnun Drachim. So he used to dar. So you don't need Rameir. You think you don't, but you go all the way back to Yavne. There was already a Talmud Vasik that was dangling a sheretz, and he gave 150 reasons. Like it's like Rabbi Yosef Egel's a sefer where he has 80 answers to one question. We're a shmonim, 100. Like write this book, 150 ways to be matayr sheretz. None of them are valid. So what's the exercise for? The exercise is that to show that there's something not just kosher v'tahir, but something elevating about every bria of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, including the sheretz, and somehow or another that was a girl. I would say that the Rabbi Meir, this kind of like shita, if you will, of learning, reoccurred in Rabbi Meir's time because he was a student of Elisha ben Avuya. And Elisha ben Avuya was a bad guy. Elisha ben Avuya was like a Machal Shabbos and Shanu Pirish. And we all know about Elisha ben Avuya, one of the favorite characters of Shas. And Rabbi Meir learned from him, and everybody asked Rabbi Meir, as you know, how do you learn from Elisha ben Avuya? So he said 3 different girsas in the Gemara, but he said basically I took the good. Rimoin matzasi, klipasei zarakti, toicha yachalti. Like I found the good in it, and I'm learning from Rabbi. So that's why Rabbi Meir was busy being matayr sheretz, yes. And the tradition goes back to Yavne, where the Talmud Vasik was matayr sheretz b'kufnun drachim, and this is now fast forward to the time of the Amoraim. Where Rabbi Yochanan said this transitional statement to Reish Lakish of Chelcha Lo'iraisa. And I saw in a sefer, maybe the Bnei Yissaschar, I think of the Bnei Yissaschar, that when Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara says, when Rabbi Yochanan said that to Reish Lakish, Chelcha Lo'iraisa, that very koach, not just use your energy for something good, but that very koach is going to be your make you into a gadol ador. Reish Lakish responded that your Yofi, Rabbi Yochanan, was a very handsome man, and here he was on the Jordan River, so bathing on the Jordan River. So he said to him that your beauty would be very good l'nashim. Like that was his response. But I think I saw in the Bnei Yissaschar that he wasn't like a sarcastic response. It was like this is the in your shita. So what could be perceived as a obviously beauty is not negative, but it's dangerous. Let's say it could be l'nashim, and we find that Rabbi Yochanan was Yoshua Shari the Tefillah. So he was somehow or another he helped a lot of nashim. Big Tzaddik helped a lot of nashim. So this is the whole new way of looking at this, which is called tikkun. Yes, sir.
The concept of tikkun shura, is it different? You say something positive comes from it, but is it different from, let's say, looking for the root of shura and showing or removing the root? Why do you do the same?
So you're talking about like a psychological thing. Why did I do that? I just want to correct something here, and thank you for clarifying this. It's not that I can grow because I did the Aveira. When we're talking about like being Matayr Sheretz, we're talking about there's something good in that Sheretz itself. We don't, our brains don't want to go here. This is burnout, but this blows the fuse. But because it's really bad. I mean, even if something is bad, like from a you see, there's a different thing, which is the process of, when you, like something that I always mention, I would ask myself, like if you talk Lashon Hara, for instance, so the question, like the main question to ask yourself, besides for Mechila and all that, is like why do I do this? What's wrong with me? And I was speaking about on Shabbos that, there's something wrong with us if we're a Baal Lashon Hara. There's something wrong. Everybody falls into Avak Lashon Hara, but there's something wrong if somebody gets some kind of a kick. If somebody something sick about a person who's always gossiping and yakking and talking, there's something wrong, So, but that's a different thing. Like what's wrong with me? But here the Chiddush is much more atzum. The chiddush here is that there is something in it in itself. There's some type of a midah, which is actually good, but you got to find it. So let's go back to Reb Tzadok, and I want to show you something. But the point is that kisha adam. Let's just read it again now a little bit with a little bit more understanding. Kisha adam misakein mashachata. We're talking about after a person does tshuva, not tshuva. We're talking about
Second of the tshuva.
That's after the tshuva, after the fall. Now I'm coming with a new thing. I want to do a tikkun. Then what will happen is here's how Hashem's going to help you out with this. He's going to put you in that exact same situation again. Now why? So here's the story. A guy spends, a person will spend 10 years doing tshuva because I did a certain aveira and make all kinds of syagim and gedarim, and then all of a sudden find themselves in the same situation again. So what's going to be our reaction? Oh my gosh, why are you doing this to me? Like, do you hate me? Did you not be makabel my tshuva? Why would you, Hashem, put me in the same situation again? So the answer is, it's a gift. That's what he says. The answer is, it's a gift. It's a tikkun. And now comes like the clincher of it all, the chiddush here, and that is that if a person did an aveira, and then they go through the process of teshuvah, which is not what we're talking about here, so they did tshuva. So I became a changed person. Did I really become a changed person? So now there's two things to do. Number one, let's test it. Test it is, like the Rambam says, Bali Yodai comes to his hand, I say Avera Pam, Rishona Pam, Shnia, and he didn't do it. That's a test. A tikkun is not the test. A tikkun is the finishing makeh b'patish of the tshuva itself. Understand this is so important. That it's not about did you really do tshuva, did you really not do tshuva? Who knows? Only Hashem knows. Tshuva, like only Hashem knows if a person really did tshuva. They don't, the jail wardens don't know it, and the mashkichim of yeshivas don't know it. Nobody knows for sure. Only Hashem knows if you really did tshuva. And how do you know to yourself? How do you prove to yourself that you really did tshuva? So the answer is, well, if the same thing happened a couple of times and I resisted, it means that I'm about tshuva. I've done it. But how do you bring it into the world of Gashmis where it becomes an improvement in myself itself? Not the tshuva, the avera. Yeah, not the tshuva becomes part of my new persona. The avera gufa becomes Meir was Matayar Asheretz. So now how is he Matayar the Sheretz? So the answer is HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you the opportunity for avera, mamish with yichud. Amish with yichud. I'm in that situation, and now and I did tshuva, because Hashem's not going to do this if I didn't do tshuva. So what's the point? If I did tshuva, what's the point? The answer is it's a makeh b'patish. It tempers me. It does a tikkun. The very fact that I resisted it is changing who I am.
So I think kind of going to clarify a little bit more. Even if somebody's done what he thinks is tshuva, but if he's not ready yet for that tikkun, Hashem's not going to bring
That's what he says. Ein Hashem yisbarach mazmin loin zeh ela kishiyadei shelo yikash eloi. So why does he do it? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Why does he do it? If he knows I did tshuva,
it's for you.
Oh, and how's it for me? I already mastered this.
But you can know that until you got.
Oh, so you can say that. You can say, well, now I know better, but you know that because you already went to Pam Rishon and Pam Shniya. Machvila, Rav Yehuda. So Rav Yehuda says, and there's Nacha Madrega of Boisa Isha Boisa Makam Boisa Perek, which is a Tikkun Gomor on what I've done, which means that this is actually not, I'm not going to be nichshal on this, but I could actually look at this with a certain type of spiritual maturity, if you will, that it's like it's actually becomes a source of chizuk to me. Not just I don't think so. It's just the knowledge that I can do it. I think you passed that already. It's a tshuva. Pam Rishona, Pam Shniya. The Mazmin Loi. You could come up with your own theory, but why does Hashem do this?
Is it that there's no desire to do it there? Is it, or is it that
I can't hear you.
Is it the fact that there is no desire to do the event once it appears again?
And therefore?
And you know
but what does Hashem do this for? You're not explaining.
I can't find to clarify. Is that what it means?
Yes, I have no desire. I'm completely past this. I've done Shuvah Gemara. I'm about Shuvah.
There must be some desire to do the Avera again, but you resist it. Is that
why? Why?
Otherwise, that's not.
Maybe there's. Lakach kasher Hashem yisbarach mazman loy. It's dafka siman shekfar niskan b'niskabel shuvasai. Shuvah was accepted.
The tikkun was done.
Yeah, but now he's doing a further tikkun. By being in a matzav of Avera not doing it. Otherwise, what's it for? He says, Kisha Adam Misakin Mashachata.
If you're in the matzav of the Avera, there must be some desire to do the Avera, there's nothing.
You see, I just want to point out, you're talking about the Gavra.
Yeah.
I'm saying, I think Tikkun goes further than the Gavra. I think Tikkun means that I actually get something positive out of this experience. And you're not allowed to put yourself in this experience. But if I still have desire, I'm not about Shuvah Gemara.
So that how you know, that how you tell the difference if it happens the second time you don't take the bait, and it happens the third time? How do you understand that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's 1, 2, or 3, but the point is, what I've done there is I've mastered my discipline. But that's not a tikkun. I think the tikkun is a step further. Agav, we'll go back to this is like Reish Lakish, like Reish Lakish. Chelcha, exactly what you have is Lairaisa. That's exactly this midah. What was the midah? Like he killed people. What was the midah?
Reish Lakish, we said before that his fire, his drive, that was his strength. Now he's going to use it as a vote. That's different. I think.
No, it's not different. It's the same thing. The very personality, charisma, force, aggressiveness, whatever he had, the profile of a criminal. That the more Rabbi Yochanan saw it, the more he liked him.
So here is the tikkun taking that koach and then using it, and you go and say Shem. That's not exactly what he's saying. The Gemara is saying it's
not what he's saying. It's not what he's saying. So now I just want to point something out that this is the stuff that misnagdim are made out of. Like some of this kind of like glorifying an avera, or I don't mean that, but that's for sure. But going back and seeing anything positive about an avera is very Reb Tzadok, Izbich, Breslavi. That's that's what
It was meant to happen.
Right. We don't like that, right?
No.
But you don't want to even revisit. You don't even want to revisit the Aver. I heard that not just Litvaks, but like by the Gerach Hasidim. So they say al chet very quickly. It's actually interesting. Like when you look around, this is a very erlich place over here. It's like a lot of like al-hey, like it's a big thing, but it's like it's like a machine gun, So and the reason they say is that because dwell back, get back into the chet in your head, it's the same. So why do Chazal say to say if you do it to say al-chet? Why do you have to say al-chet if you're just supposed to not get it in your head? Okay, you have to say al-chet, but just do it, get it over with. Don't think about it too much.
What's Vidoi Pen?
That. That.
You do a survey of people who are about, let's say, find someone.
Chosrei b'tshuva.
Not everybody is Hashem is Nilo to
Something to look forward to. Something to look forward to.
I'm just saying, does that mean everybody's sort of close?
Yeah, probably this doesn't happen to too many people. This probably talking about a great tzaddik and a Kadosh Baruch Hu is doing a tikkun. It's a good thing to do tshuva and do tshuva gemara and be about tshuva. I just saw something in Das Torah. That's Rabbi Yerucham. No Rebbe. The Rabbi Yerucham in Das Torah Parshas Hazinu. I copied it out for you. He's talking about Parshas Hazinu, Rosh Yom Kippur, right? That's the season. So he says, Kfar Omad be'inyan zeh hagoyin Rabbi Yisrael Salanter zatzal. He says, let me tell you something. Rabbi Yerucham was the Mashgiach Meir, and let me tell you something that Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said. Not what we're saying, but it's interesting. Haya Omer, Harei Soid Shel Yom HaKippurim, Haloi Ikare Inyan HaTshuva. The main thing you're supposed to do on Yom Kippur is not fast and not daven, it's to do tshuva. That's the main point of Yom Kippur. Me'ata asks Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, Eich efshar liskayim kol tshuva achar shekol hayoim. How do you actually doing tshuva achar shekol hayoim? Hinui bebeis hamedrash b'tay nisai utfilasai. Like what? How is that tshuva? Is that an interesting question? What do you mean? How's it tshuva? I'm doing tshuva. I'm in Shul. I'm in Yom Kippur. I'm fasting. I'm doing tshuva. I'm saying al chet. I'm doing tshuva. But Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said, how's that tshuva? Hinui bebeis hamedrash b'tay nisai. Busy fasting with tefillah. So what would tshuva look like then?
Back in the situation.
Yeah, go to the beach. What's a tanisa? It's tefillah. The matzav acher legamri mean matzav achatoyim shavar aleim. You're not at all in the situation that you were in when you did the chet. And the Rambam tells us what tshuva is, that so the place to do Yom Kippur should be in a lot. That should be the place to do tshuva. The place to do tshuva should not be in the Beis Medrash in Shul. What?
Yeah, you can't put yourself back in there.
Well,
It's a little recalcitrant.
you came late.
I accept that.
I don't know what mazmin means.
Here, it's up here.
If we do something, that's what Hashem.
Rav Tzadok holds point of Rav Tzadok is that you're not allowed to put yourself in that situation, but you will be in that situation. Hashem will give you this situation. So the point is, but even without Rav Tzadok, the Rambam says that about tshuva is the way I'm understanding Rabbi Salanter's question, that the part of it's not just testing the tshuva. Listen to me carefully on this. We're not just testing the tshuva. That you can do it. That you have to go outside. But it's part of the tshuva.
And you can't do it either.
And you're not allowed to do it lechatchila. So comes Reb Tzadok, he says it has to be a gift. But Rabbi Salanter is telling us in the question, according to the question of Rabbi Salanter, that you cannot. How can you possibly do tshuva in a Beis Medrash? The only place to do tshuva is in the situation where you did the chet, based on the Rambam. That's Rabbi Salanter's question. Well, you're not allowed to put yourself into it. So that's a kasha that everybody asks on the Rambam. But it's. I mean, the truth is that in the Beis Medrash there's also a lot of nisyonos.
Rambam also says that.
Is that true? Okay.
Right? Rambam says that also. So those who can do it in the Beis Medrash.
So part of it, but you're supposed to do tshuva gemur in Yom Kippur, and it's not true unless it's a case that it's not just. In other words, like charot al avar kabbalah al asid, vidu. Yeah, that's fine. I can go through this mental process, but it's not tshuva. Now, so let's say on Yom Kippur morning, I have this desires. I think, okay, I'm going to do tshuva right now, and at the end of Yom Kippur, forgiven, salachti. Right? So, but what about what happened? Hello, you just got to the first line of the Rambam. You didn't get further, where it says that no, the Haver comes to you once and twice, and you're not allowed to put yourself in the situation. But that's Rabbi Salanter's question. So, and he adds, V'Rav Yehuda Yuma Pevav Halei Machvi. He was machvi, whatever machvi means. That's why it was omen on the words. Ki tshuva tzricha liyos ba'oisei isha ba'oisei parak. So this is not happening in shul. V'haya hagoin Rabbi Salanter zatzal oimer. So Rabbi Salanter said the following: Ki ein be'emes klum eitza acheres. There really is no good eitza. V'tzarech adam amnam b'yom kippurim gufa. So what do you do? What are you going to do? You're going to go to the beach on Yom Kippur? What are you going to do? So the answer is you're going to go to a treif restaurant on Yom Kippur and see whether you can resist cheeseburgers or a treif or what are you supposed to do? So he says, Rabbi Salanter, he's quoting him, that the only answer to this is Adam Amnam B'Yom Kippurim Gufa on Yom Kippur in Shul. What you have to do is L'tzayer Atzmai Kol Chatov Sha'avar Aleihim. I quote, Hachatoyim, let me finish. Hachatoyim b'chol oifanehem. Like you got to get into this in depth, imagination. V'lachshev aleihem. And then you have to think, okay, what am I going to do now? So it's like a mental exercise of putting yourself in that situation, and then from that situation, doing tshuva. This is so Hasidish. This is a Rabbi Yerucham in the name of Rabbi Salanter.
If you're trying to do tshuva for Hirur Halev.
Mamish.
By having Hirur.
So you're supposed to envision yourself doing the right thing in that situation.
After you imagine the chet, b'chol ofanehem, No, I'm saying don't try this at home. This is, it sounds like you're putting yourself in, at least mentally, in a very dangerous situation. Like most of us, like I don't even want to think about that. Like I don't want to.
But I could hear it. If his fate is something external, like eating cheeseburgers, and he puts himself back in this situation, saying, "Okay, the cheeseburgers. I feel terrible about the fact that I did it this once, and I'm imagining that this is just nothing that I want to get involved in." You can put your mind in such a place, and it's not dangerous. But when the chait itself involves the chait of the imagination, that can put you in a pretty dangerous place.
It's certainly the opposite of what the Gerach Hasidim say. This is not. This would take a long time to say al chit for me. You have to imagine every time. I mean, let's keep the story clean. But like, let's say every time I speak Lashon Hara, like, let me go through that again. So that works a little bit, no? In other words, every time I'm Motzi Shemer, let's go through that again in my mind. But when you start talking about Hara Leyv, or we start talking about, which the Rambam is talking about, this is not me, the Rambam is talking about Boise Isha, Boise Perak, Boise Koach, the Rambam is talking about that. So that Shuvah process, he says you're supposed to do on Yom Kippur, that's Yom Kippur Gufa. L'sayer atzmai b'kol chatav she'over aleim hachatoyim b'chol oifanehem v'lach she'v aleim, and then you go to the thought of eicha yo'osei achshav imlu yavoyu negdoi osei hachatoyim atzmam v'osem ha'matzavim atzmam ki b'shas hachet v'dafka al kogoin kol zeh yasid shuva yisvada v'yivatel es hara b'chol protov v'noyroyim hadvarim ki yitachen. This is all from Rabbi Yaacov. Noiro, Yom Noirayim. Think a lot about Averos, right? Yom Noirayim. Noiroyim hadavar. I'm sure that I'm reading this now for the first time and I read all this. Sheba Yom HaKippurim. Here you are on Yom Kippur. Ube'emsa Shmona Esrei. Zarchu Adam Machshavtoi L'tapes B'chol Bitzas Hatinoife Shalachatayim. What do you like about this?
The swamp of the.
Drain the swamp.
Don't, yeah, like, yeah. So you got to get into it. V'im, he goes further. Ki rab ma'od sakana. A very dangerous place. In other words, like Yom Kippur is not meant for the weak-hearted. This is Yom Kippur. I guess that's why you have Elul to prepare for this. Im ki rav ma'oda sakana lotzeis mehem naki l'loy kol lichluch amnam keina manase? Question mark. What then? How else do you do tshuva? Ein eitza acheres l'tshuvasai loy bahachlotais. It's not about making decisions. Kabbalais. It's not about making kabbalais. Lischazik mikan alaba. It's not about just, okay, I'm going to get better, God. Alay tzarchu dafka levatel as etzem hara shaloi, hara k'mayshu b'chol protov, u'b'chol matzavav, alay alkein, therefore, vadai halay muchrach lahaver negdoi es kol hara me'oz levatel. And this, he says, is what the Gemara means in Rosh Hashanah. It's not just like Rabbi Yaacov was a little bit controversial here and there, but this is Rabbi Yerucham. It's not controversial. He was the Rebbe of every one of the Gedolim. Rabbi Yerucham. Rosh Hashanah, the Gemara says, Kama de kayif inish daite tzvei malo. The Gemara talks about why a shofar has to be rounded. So the Gemara says, because Kama de kayif inish daite, the more subservient we become, the more kayif nafshe. B'yom HaKippurim, that's on Rosh Hashanah. B'yom HaKippurim, kama de pashet inish daite tzvei malo. Pashet inish daite, what does that mean? Like on Rosh Hashanah, you're supposed to be like a bent over eved, like a shofar. Not Yom Kippur. The Gemara says Yom Kippur is the more straight I am, the better. Is that what it means? Kama de pashet inish daite. The more straight my brain is, the better. So Rabbi Yaacov Hainu, what does it mean to be straight? Hainu de tzarchu laharchiv b'daite es kol achet. Straight means I'm imagining, maybe I'm manning up to my chet. I'm like guessing here a little bit, but the main seed of all different drachim of self-help, like the first kernel, no matter what derech you take, whether you're Jewish or lahavdil, even other religions or whatever, psychology, whatever, the first step is always to recognize the chet, to stare the chet in the face, and because that gets rid of all the denial and all the cognitive dissonance and all the. So maybe that's what he means. What he means is that you're what are you doing on Yom Kippur? But then what are you doing on Yom Kippur if you're not facing the fact that you did a chet? It doesn't mean anything. It's I did this chet. When you think about it, what's the point of vidui? Isn't that the whole thing? Vidui is the same lashon as being modeh. That's what it means. So the whole point of the exercise is I am modeh. I did this chet. So maybe what the point is that it just pulls us out of that denial. But here's Rabbi Salanter. So let's just make a sikum because my time is up. And I'd like to please make sure I do this, the second half of Ayin Gimel next week in Mir Hashem. But what it comes down to is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, after the whole tshuva process, and I'm aware of the niskan and masaka, I get it. So let's work on it. But after this, he says clearly, after I finish the tshuva process, after I'm already about tshuva gemura, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is makabel my tshuva, and is makabel my tshuva, and I'm not lo'ilam lo'ashuv l'chet hazeh. So then HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings you lo'isa yisha lo'isa perak lo'isa zman. And what for? And he won't bring it, he says. He won't give this to me. Hashem's not unfair. He's not going to give this to me if I'm not going to withstand it. So what does he give it to me for? So says Rav Tzaddik, because it gives me another level of ruchnius, which we're going to call now a tikkun. And I'm literally staring down the chet, and I'm a gavra rabba keneged this chet, I'm bekoach about this chet. I'm not intimidated by the chet. I'm and it's like maybe like Shaul's saying that gives me chizuk. Now I know this about myself, or maybe not just I know about myself, but you're tempering the steel with a better alloy. It gufa is changing. Okay, thank you very much.
The modern writes that the nafesh was the dark side of the soul, and there were sparks of the should be at the elevator. So you can either elevate it by sitting and doing tshuva, or by touching it, confronting it and praying, and that would elevate it. So whenever a person has the taiva, he has sparks of his soul in there, so he can either do tshuva and elevate the sparks, or confront it and daven and not do it. And by doing that, you elevate the spark.
It's the same Torah.
Exactly. Right.
It's the same Torah, but I mean,
elevating sparks.
No, but elevating sparks. But the whole Eitz Hadas is a kasha. If you go right down to the beginning, and we learned in Ayin that their tikkun, not tshuva, but their tikkun was with the alei te'ena. Remember, meaning go back, run away from this tree. No, they went back to the tree. Think about it. Think about the story.
It's not a full tikkun, though. We know we're still paying for that.
Okay, because we also have to do that tikkun. But look what they did. The lesson, they instead of running away from the tree, here they were on their Yom Kippur. They went to the tree. They confronted it and pulled off a leaf and used it for tznius. Aloi davarhu. Alei teina. This is what Tzadok points out. Right back to the tree. And that's exactly what we're learning here. Hey, you need some leaves. Go back to the tree. Tree? Right. I was just electrocuted by that tree. What am I going back to the tree? Confront it. That's what
I'm saying there's another person
that's the tikkun, yeah.